you have to be attentive and careful, and it's dangerous for you, you could say, but it also can be extremely fruitful. And I think the online space is that too. It's like it's actually the capacity to spread the seed, let's say, of the gospel online is the most that you can ever think of. Like it's the biggest net, it's the biggest pool, but it also is the one most capable of drowning you, like dragging you down.
Right. Hello and welcome to Why Are We Talking About Rabbits? Just so you know, rabbits reproduce a lot. And the idea is that rabbits, like the internet, can jump around. And ideas on the internet jump around. And some are really interesting. They lead us into very interesting rabbit holes, but most, not so much. This podcast talks about all of those ideas that pop around, but we do it using history, theology, psychology at times, and lots of immersive experiences at First Things Foundation, where we learn about this old world, new world divide. Today, Jonathan Pageau comes back. He's a friend of the show. And he talks with me about this concept of taking the big ideas and turning them into little, or a better way to think of it is particularized reality. In other words, all this Gnostic talk that we tend to engage in, where really cool ideas get bannered about, well, how do we manifest them? Sort of on the ground where people live. We get into a lot about our restaurant. We get into the nature of the table, the nature of food, the nature of dining, what it is symbolically. We talk about these big patterns and how they fractally reproduce down at the bottom, which of course isn't bottom in a hierarchical sense. It's more like yin and yang. That's today. That's Pageau. Mr. Pageau back on WAWTAR. So, Jonathan, since I last saw you, you've been on you had a few events in your life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, things have been moving strangely in my life, let's say.
It's a blessing to everybody who's trying to, on this sort of orthodox, whatever it is, old world subculture train that's happening on the internet. So just to be able to talk to you again is wonderful. Thanks for coming on. If people don't know Jonathan, go check out Symbolic World. I have a couple, I invited Paul Vanderklay on this. I don't think he can do it though, but he was just going to hop on. If he does, I'll bring him in. We'll just talk, because I kind of wanted, first of all, thanks for coming. Where are you right now? Montreal?
No, in Montreal. Yeah, I'm in my house, but I've been traveling way too much, and will be traveling in the next few months. So it's good that we catch each other. I'm going to see Paul Vanderklay next week.
Because you're going, guess what? I think one of our board members is going to go up there and mess around and see what life is like at this convention.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Just give us 2 seconds on that so people know what it is.
So what it is. So it's a group. It's some friends, supporters, people part of this little corner of the internet, I guess we call it now. They're organizing a conference in Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is really not close by, which is really like it's really like in the middle of nowhere.
No, it's not close.
And so it's John Vervaeke, Paul Vanderklay, myself, and also someone from Thunder Bay, a professor at the university around there. So it's about consciousness. It's called, I think it's Consciousness and Conscience, and but I think the subject is just going to be continuing the conversations that we've been having for a few years now, and also networking and being with human people in the flesh instead of always online. So
that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's, I think, let's go down that road. You want to? Let's talk about that.
Sure.
I'm riffing off some of what you and Paul last did on, I think it was his channel. This idea of the tyranny of the individual, and then this. I want you to talk about manifestation or incarnation or doing something where people are together in a way that creates a new skin. Now, I don't know if the garment of skin idea is appropriate here, but something is being born that has body.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you're nervous about it. I'm nervous about the Gnostic nature of what can happen when we just keep talking. Are you
Yeah.
nervous about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why, I think that's why right from the beginning, I tell people go to church. I mean, it's like when I say go to church, it is go to church. Obviously, it's go to church, but it's not just go to church. It's mostly the idea of try to be involved, try to find bodies that you can participate in. And that includes, of course, church as the highest version of that, but also family, like get married, have kids, have a active family life, get involved in intermediary organizations like Boy Scouts, whatever it is, like something that has body, and you're forced to deal with people different from you, and you're forced to some people can get that at their jobs to a certain extent, and that's okay. But we're moving in this weird position where most people work from home, most people don't even meet each other in the flesh anymore, which is my situation. Most of the time people I deal with are all online. So we need to
do that with us for a second. It's happening to you on some level.
For sure.
You're being disembodied.
Yeah. Oh no, that's for sure. It's happening to me. I have to be very attentive and careful about that because it's not just that you're being disembodied, it's also that you're being rewarded for being disembodied.
Right.
So it's like it's really bad. It's like, the time that I put into this is rewarding. It's rewarding in terms of attention, in terms of recognition. It's rewarding in terms of, financial gain. It's all of this is rewarding. And so we can be deluded in thinking this is it, like this is life. Jeez. But it's not. Well, it's a little bit. It's something. It's like a beginning. There's a root. There's possibility of an inkling of more, but it's not enough. We need to.
So let me do this. It's a question.
Yeah.
You're aware of. Let's just use the term disembodiment, embodiment. There's sort of a balance where we're in the internet now, but. What does it look like to build? I was thinking, because I'm a history guy. I thought of what did it look like to build the culture that we call scientific? And it looked like moving from something like monasteries to universities, and then universities to research centers, to something like producers of truth. And then that culture, like that university culture, became a type of principle or pillar for this modern world. Like, it moved from one thing to another and took on body. That's just one example of a million cultural examples you could. How does embodiment look? Should symbolism become a dominant principle in what we'd call Western culture, America? What would it's church? Is it a particular church? Is it a particular way of being in a church? Can it be any kind of organizational structure? I don't know the answers, but what do you think?
I think it has to just be things that are in their proper order is the best way to understand it. That is, it can be all kinds of organization and structures. They just have to be embedded into each other, right? That you have to have goods that are embedded into each other. So, you can, let's say you have a group of friends, right? A group of friends can embody that, a kind of communion, a kind of learning how to love. But you could also have a group of friends that all they do is gamble, right? Or all they do is take drugs or whatever, like, right? So it always has to do with how it's embedded towards higher goods. And so you could play sports, and sports are really wonderful in order to learn discipline, in order to learn self-sacrifice. There's all these things that you can learn in sports, but if sports become an idol, and you see that a lot, I think in contemporary culture, then it actually moves away from the good. Right. So I think that if we actually think of it properly, like if we understand it properly, I think the internet and online culture can have a place. And it's kind of like, it's something like the place that a missionary, I don't know, like a missionary going to a completely strange land could encounter, which is the idea that there it's very difficult to find body because you have less, it's harder to find places of communion, right? Because you don't, on the internet, you literally don't have body together. But let's say in terms of traveling to a foreign land, you don't know the culture, like you can't connect, like you can't sacrifice to their gods, right? You can't you have to be attentive and careful, and it's dangerous for you, you could say, but it also can be extremely fruitful. And I think the online space is that too. It's like it's actually the capacity to spread the seed, let's say, of the gospel online is the most that you can ever think of. Like it's the biggest net, it's the biggest pool, but it also is the one most capable of drowning you, like dragging you down.
Right. There was this meme that was just sent to me yesterday, which was a good timing for our talk. It's the meme of the horse, the Trojan horse, going into why am I forgetting right now?
Going into Troy.
Going into Troy. And the story, the meme has the horse as a regular, it was a secular conversation, and inside the horse is a theological conversation. And then there's an arrow pointing at Troy saying, "My friends."
Right, exactly.
And I'm thinking, yeah, I think that's what my podcast is, which is, it seems like we're going to talk about, stuff you recognize, but in reality, there's a deeper, more profound conversation that always is about to break out. And I think that's what you're doing on the internet is, I think this is a conversation about elves. I get elves. I like elves. And then suddenly, whoa, where did I just go? Did I just go to God? And everything sort of ends in God. But I don't find people reject it. And I'll give you an example. We opened a restaurant in Greenville. First Things Foundation, our nonprofit, opened a restaurant as a nonprofit restaurant. So if you eat a Georgian khachapuri, you're giving a donation. It's on fire right now because we have these Friday nights. And I really want you to help me understand what's happening, because I think something profound is happening that I want to share with you, because I want to hear what you say.
Okay.
Because you spend time on this. Strangers. So it's a 20-seat table. Sometimes we do 25. Strangers get a reservation. You and your wife could come to the restaurant. You go, you make a reservation, then you show up and you don't know the other 18 or so people at the table. Those 18 people then are greeted by the tamada. I'm often the tamada in the Georgian tradition. And there's a good article on your website, actually, about this. The tamada takes you through what is essentially a liturgical tradition. It's essentially the agape feast without all the agape words. Now, what do I think about that? We can talk about that. What happens, though, is the strangers are put through this process whereby something is built, and I want you to help me. Something's being built where it becomes manifest in a friendship 3 hours later, but it's not manifest because we had dinner solely. The words are uniting the material reality. There's something about the food gets on the altar, the table, and then the words are united. There's heaven and earth. And then something magnificent happens. You should go read our reviews. The food's good, but there's something else happening.
Right.
There's something else happening. And people leave, and then they become lovers of what we're doing. But Jonathan, what we're doing is just this, it's dinner. And I don't want to market it because I think it'll kill it, but I have to talk about it because it's enriching for us in a way that is not monetary. And everyone knows these words I'm saying, but what's happening? What is that body that's being built there? What is that? Is it Christ? What is it?
I mean, you could say that ultimately it's a body that it points to Christ. I mean, all good bodies, like all bodies that have good in them, point to Christ. But it's not like a direct thing. It's contained within. It's a bigger body, but is it
sacramental?
You could say it depends how you see sacramentality. If you see sacramentality as something that overflows liturgy into, let's say, something like the ritualized good that we can find anywhere, then maybe, you could say that if you were careful a little bit, not to confuse its place. Right. But I think that, in a way, what it is it's showing at a lower level what is supposed to be happening in communion, in church. But, in church, it is very lofty what is supposed to be happening there in terms of how all things are united. The angels, we're united with the angels, we're united with the whole cosmos into this moment of participation and eating the body of Christ. But you could say that what you're experiencing is at a lower level. I mean, it's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner, but
Yeah.
Thanksgiving dinner, because we know, like, if you think about Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, you can remember times where that Thanksgiving dinner was magical, right? Or that Christmas dinner was kind of there's something about it which carried you up, but the thing about us in the West is that we've lost a lot of what actually used to do that, and we have to. For some people, we've lost it less, but we like the idea of dressing up, the idea of setting the table, the idea of praying before we eat. All these things are there to carry this moment up. But so people, because they forget it, they will have less of those experiences. But I think what you've got in this Georgian tradition is something like a long worked out, like a way that's been worked out over centuries to carry people into this space of communion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it works. Like it actually, if people come, I mean, obviously if someone came with ill intention, they could ruin it, like Christmas dinner. But
that
but
uncle,
I think in this case, you've got people that are also, because they don't have a reason to ruin it, like they're
self-selected also.
Exactly. They're coming on their own volition. They're not forced to come out of guilt or whatever it is that you could deal with in terms of going to your mom's for some meal or something.
There's a toast to the dead that usually happens something like 4 or 5 toasts in. You as the host, as the MC spinning the music, you can move it around, but you should see, we all stand. There's even often we sing Memory Eternal. And these are with folks, like I just was on a call with a couple who heard about this and they became supporters of First Things. Jonathan, these are from West Tennessee. I could barely understand this dude with his accent, with his Southern accent. And he's asking if I could come with the guys and throw this party with his friends, his hunting friends. Now, I don't know how to explain that to you.
Yeah.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you just do the table, you don't have to know anything. You just have to do the table. I think that's the embodiment moment that you and Paul were talking about. Like, you have to do the thing.
There's something about the toasting, I think, which is crucial in what you're doing, which is it actually is a worship, like not in the bad sense, like not in the sense that it's idolatry, but in the sense that it is a lower level of conscious named celebration. Like, we are going to celebrate this aspect of life. So we raise our glass to some specific aspect of life, and we do it in a spirit of communion and gratitude. And then we do that over and over. And so it's basically people going over the different aspects of their lives, 100%. The important aspects of their lives, their family, you said the dead, whatever it is that you're toasting, is you're obviously not going to be toasting their success at some video game. Like, that's not what you're going to be toasting at.
Exactly. Well, on that thought, all of the work you're doing, again, in Matthew's book. So one of the things that happens, and you'll see, because we have these, like just last night, the Toastmasters, there's 6 of us right now who sort of know how to do it. We've got to get about 10 because we're going to all be drinking too much vodka otherwise, because they're getting popular. So we sat down and talked about what toasting is. And I did bring Matthew's book, but I didn't use it. I wanted to like have it as the manual.
Have it there, yeah.
Because one of the ideas is, so a toast to the, I'm a sports fan, as you know. A toast to the New York Jets is bad on a lot of levels. One, they're terrible at playing football, but it's too particular. It's too earthy. It's too close. And so a toast to the spirit of competition, or the times in your life when you knew you must compete, to the idea, the notion of the high idea. Then everyone around the table chooses their form of competition. You'll see they inevitably get down to a sports figure, or the time I beat this kid who I didn't think I could beat in this race. And then it all becomes particularized. But the Tamada's job is to offer, I don't like the word the general, to offer heaven, right? And when you say heaven, you should see all the secular people get nervous. It's just going to be a religious thing. But quickly they recognize it's not, quote, religious. It's something about natural to their existence. It's wild to watch. And
yeah, you're offering the place where their particulars come together. So if that's how it works, like so do people say their specific thing?
yeah, oh yeah.
They just think about it, they say it?
Even when they don't mean to, they particularize. As long as the tamada doesn't particularize. So the tamada offering too much earth, it doesn't allow for the unity because people don't know how to. Let me put it this way. What do we think of poetry? Poetry is when the words create a universal. They create something like a bigger thing than we already know, right? And so Americans aren't good at that. Here's an American toast. Hey, man, I heard you got a raise to Jimmy.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you see a natural automata at the table say something like, to those moments in life where we went from what we were to what we thought we could be, to moving toward even a bigger vision of life. People just don't do it. They just can't do it like that. So if the tamada offers it, it creates this invitation into this space. And then everyone jumps in. Now, I will say one thing, not everyone. It's very interesting watching around the table, which is a symbol of order. It's very interesting watching those who aren't comfortable within the order. They want to create chaos. Almost by definition, there's 2 or 3 people that want to break the table. It's very interesting. I don't know what that's about.
What it's about? Because, well, I know what it's about. I can tell you.
That's why I want you on this.
Damn it, Jonathan. I can tell you at least what the impetus, where the impetus comes from. So the positive impetus for that comes from being afraid or worrying that this table is the totality. Like this is everything. And so usually what the person will want to point out, like a fool, is something like, this isn't everything. Like, here's an exception. Here's the opposite. Here's something that doesn't fit. Here's something that will mess up, your call to celebration. Because let's say I'm giving the best case scenario, because I sense pride in this thing. Like I sense like this could be too self glorifying or self gratifying. And so that's the positive, but it also, that can become pernicious. Like, it can become, like I said, it can become pernicious where some people have that habit where they think they do that, but they end up in nihilism. Like they're constantly destructuring and deconstructing, but then they find they have nothing to stand on. And so it's a necessary part of, sometimes in some cultures that's a ritualized function. So you'll have a character like the fool in the king's court, or what is it, the Heyoka in the native, the plain natives, they have these characters that are like sacred clowns that will break the rituals. They do it on purpose.
At the Georgian table, the character is the Melikipe.
So there is someone in there.
There is someone. It's the keeper of the wine, and it's tricky. But the tamada will either one see that person at the table and then appoint them. But it's difficult in a group you don't know, because if you appoint the wrong person, you've created a bit of a problem, because you can actually get them to ruin the table when they're trying to do something they don't know. Or we'll grab a person who knows the table and we'll have them be Melikipe. And you're right, they're the one that leans in. So the tamada said something hopefully beautiful, say about family. They lean in, they go, you think this guy even has a family? Let's be honest. And they're speaking to 2 or 3 people, like, who would want to marry this guy? And they're pouring your wine while they're doing it. And their job is to crash the order. But
the thing is that they're not. Actually, what they're doing, and this is actually very technical, but you can see what they're doing. What they're doing is that they're giving voice for those thoughts and those moments that everybody is having. So everybody has that that doubt. And so what they're doing is they're manifesting it, they're embodying it, and they're actually preventing it from destroying the table if they do properly. Because if they don't, then it can build up, and then someone's going to say something that is completely is going to be strong enough that it will kind of destroy, like say something scandalous, something vulgar, or whatever, in order to kind of break it. But if it's happening constantly, it's like, oh wait, he's doing it. Oh wait, he's doing it. Oh wait, he's doing it. And then they won't have that impetus to go there, let's say, especially if it's done well. It's very tricky.
Yes, correct. Because our little Tamada club was debating whether we should train Melekipe separately. And it almost became absurd to try to train the Joker. It would be odd to turn someone into the Joker when they just need to bring that almost naturally to the table. But I think there is a way to teach it. And so all of this,
they're also serving the wine,
which means them that
they're participating. First of all, they're participating, but they're also symbolically offering the derision, like the thing that can make you slip, like they're offering it as you're consuming. That's right. And so it's actually a perfect role. Like the fact that it's that person who's doing it is perfect in many ways.
You're making me think of a table we had just last week where we had a brand new guy come on who, when people volunteer to do Tamada, it's like a donation. It's a 3-hour a night, and you're donating all of your time. It's a beautiful thing. So we train them. They have to come to a table, but he was really a Tamada. He was not a Melekipe. He was not chaos, but he was my Melekipe for the night. So he's sitting there. The problem is he was adding more order to order. And the end of the table, look, if you in Greenville, don't hold this against me. The end of the table just burst. They burst into a lot of drinking and loudness. They burst into the Melekipe.
Interesting.
And there was no controlling them after. Like I would have to literally be an authoritarian and say, I'm toasting now, whack my glass to get that part. It's just like that part of the table down. I think this is a metaphor for life, right? As a teacher, you always wanted to bring in that kid who wanted to break the class. You didn't want to send them out, And so how does this all work in life? I don't know. It's interesting.
Oh, but it can help you understand, what the positive possibility for chaos is, like what it can do if it's well integrated. Why it is that we need feasting, and we need a little bit of moments where things kind of get slippery. Like we need that, a little bit of that, or else if not careful with that, then it'll build up and it'll break at some point.
Is this a good reason perhaps why you don't fear, in your work you talk about this, you don't fear postmodernism as much as understand it? Is it the chaotic element?
No, definitely. I think postmodernism has something useful to offer, especially as it comes at the end of kind of Enlightenment scientism and this really radical rationalism that is still there. It's still there's still some of it underneath, not underneath, but like running a lot of our thinking. But I think postmodernism came and tried to point to the limit of that. Now, of course, it did it in a way that is, because we're dealing with the large movements too, like we're dealing with these large century-long movements, then postmodernism and its effects are very destructive at the same time. So I don't want to downplay that, but I also think that a better version, like if we're going to move towards a new traditional society in the sense of real tradition, not in the sense of just this authoritarian thing, we have to integrate the fool, like integrate the fool as the fool, not just have the fool around. Know that you can't control everything. You can't have everybody. Yeah, like the Puritan drive that exists in the U.S. is part of the reason why we're where we are.
100%.
Like those excesses are part of people who wonder at the insanity of the current moment in terms of sexuality, in terms of, let's say, also the drug epidemic that you have in the United States. Have to remember that 100 years ago you had prohibition. That's not long ago.
Right. Think about that.
That's not long ago. That's not that long.
Think about the craziness of prohibition too. Wow.
Yeah.
You're talking about a plan. This is what conservatives in America are very interesting on this level. You're talking about an all-encompassing controlling plan. Prohibition is no different than all these folks talking about the way they wanted to do these mandates for the shots. I mean, it was a massive project.
Yeah.
Massive, crazy project. Do you think the folks you've been interviewing with, I think Michael Knowles, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Do you think they understand in the conservatism this danger that they lean toward Puritanism at times, like American Puritanism, or not really?
I think some do. I think some don't, and we'll see. Yeah, but I think that I think the Orthodox, we are very fortunate because we have this whole notion of the holy fools. We have the vehicle for it. We have things, we have Dostoevsky in which you can have characters like that. So I think that we have something to offer the Puritan spirit in a true conservatism, because people often, because we fall into these opposites, they always think, well, if you're not, if you're not against this, you're for this. And, if you're not in this, if you don't hate the margin, then you're with them. So it's like, no, we need all, there is the room for some strangeness on the edge. It's just inevitable. But I think we have the language and so hopefully that's one of the things we can offer. And I think people that are into symbolism, people that have kind of discovered that language, will also be able to offer that within Christianity.
I think that's through my conversion process. It started in Africa with Muslims in Mali. What happened is I found a type of Christianity and Orthodoxy that both demonstrated the ability to, or the invitation to obey. It's in there, right?
Of course.
It's in there, man. But weirdly, the obedience had a freedom. And again, it was Dostoevsky that led me in. The obedience allowed for my foolishness. It somehow incorporates them both at the same time. And I remember, my upbringing, sex, drugs, all these things were as if they didn't exist. And now suddenly I knew they existed because I was participating.
Yeah.
And so what did that mean for me? It meant I was bad. But then I started to realize, but of course I'm participating. Not that I should, but of course I'm participating because that's what it means on some level to be aware is you have to travel to the margin, and I never knew that. And then it all invited me all in one moment, like a flash moment. I was riding down to go to a monastery and I just realized that I was who I was. And somehow Orthodoxy could accept that. Where my Protestant background, it somehow needed me to do more. I can't explain it. Does that make sense?
And it's also, it's difficult. And I think it's difficult to communicate sometimes to people because they're so caught up in the culture stuff that so you have all these interesting stories of starets, like of Elder Paisios, for example, who encounters someone who has a certain passion, right? And that passion is clearly a passion which is against our tradition, like it's something which is not acceptable in the church, and discerns that this is not, like, fighting this straight on is not the best way for this person's soul. So it's like, leave this alone, do this, pray, do this, do this other thing. I'm not saying that this aspect of your life is good. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, you know what? I want to save you. Like, so let's do this, And so I think that's hard to sometimes communicate to people because they'll immediately think, oh, so you're justifying
bingo
the behavior. And it's like, no, I'm not doing any of that. I've had interview with Catholics where they often ask me, like, what's the position on birth control in the church, in the Orthodox Church? And I'm like, well, I think the position is probably similar in terms of theory to the Catholic Church. Like, we probably should use birth control, like sexuality is for family making children. But I said there's also all kinds of realities that people live in and all kinds of priorities.
Now you start to sound like you're backsliding or something.
No, but I'm like that's up for the priest to decide with the person, like what the priority in their spiritual life is to deal with, whether that's the priority or whether there is another priority. I'm not justifying one behavior or another. I'm just saying it's like we're there to save people. And so sometimes,
yeah, there's a proper hierarchy to the fix. The fix demands this and this before this, but who can see? I can't see for myself that. So the church means to inform me properly, right? It has to inform me properly toward the fix. I want to get it all done in one shot. I think porn is one of these things where, especially for young men, and a lot of the folks we're talking to, like, porn is just a killer.
Yeah.
It's way up there, like, to just shut that down all. There's all these other things that lead you toward the final shutdown. But it seems like you're weak on porn then or something, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are other things driving the porn addiction, but it's the same with alcohol. It's the same with any addiction. And so, oh yeah. So I think that it really depends on your personal story, where you are. You know, I mean, obviously you have to stop watching porn, and you have to stop doing all the bad things that we do. But we also have to do it in a way that won't make you crack and make you just, because that's the thing. Like there's I forget who wrote it. There's an analysis of kind of American Protestant morality, which is right, the binge, and it's like binge and then regret. It's like binge, regret, and it's like this movement between these two extremes where you're meant, in some ways, like, although you're saved, you're kind of meant to be perfect. I remember growing up as a Baptist, I remember hearing a pastor in church saying something like, Christians don't practice sin. And I'm like, what? It's like, well, Christians sin once in a while, but they don't practice sin. And I was like looking around to the people, and I'm like, this doesn't sound right. Like, this doesn't sound like real. I knew that there was no way that this was possible. And so what it did, it sends you in a spiral of guilt, right? And this crazy spiral of guilt. It was like, which means that, am I not Christian? Because obviously I sin every day. Like, I sin all the time. And I realize that. And so, especially if you take the words of Christ seriously and you're 17 years old and there are all these beautiful girls around you, it's like, dude, I sin every single day for sure.
100%. All right. Let's take a break for 1 second. We'll leave Jonathan out there in the ether world while we stop for this commercial break on WAWTAR. First Things Foundation. Think of it as private Peace Corps with an Orthodox twist. You're probably like, what's that? What's an Orthodox twist? All it means is we borrow from the great tradition of the ancient East, Christianity, and we try to do asceticism while we serve those folks, quote, in need. But the reality is we are in need. And so we go to fill our needs while filling the needs of others the best we can through human relationships. Peace Corps, 2 years service. We do that at First Things. So join us. We go all kinds of crazy places. And when we do, you learn a local language, immerse deeply in culture, and on the backside, you help people build their most beautiful ideas. That's First Things. Do donate. When you donate monthly, you get access to our in-person crazy class that we're going to offer at our restaurant. You can take that course online or you can take it at the restaurant. It's a philosophy course. It's coming out November 1st. Be aware, become a recurring donor, and enter free of charge our WAWTAR pod course. WAWTAR. Why are we talking about rabbits? That's one of these things I'm always thinking about, is the idea of purity in our culture. Imagine a 17-year-old who's promised himself with a purity ring to be married at 28 to the woman he's attracted to at 17.
It's like, dude, what are you doing, man?
You just signed up to be a monk, but you're in the basement hanging out watching movies with the girl. How in the world does that happen?
It's definitely messed up. Like, our world in terms of those types of things is definitely messed up. Yeah.
But see, now I sound like I'm saying have sex or something. Gosh, man.
Yeah, I know exactly. That's the problem. That's the problem of kind of understanding these things in hierarchies and dealing with the problem. Like, we have to deal with some of the deep cultural problems that we're stuck with. For example, like the idea of late marriage is something which I think is completely unchristian. Like, that shouldn't, you can't have both. You can't have late marriage and abstinence. That doesn't right. What is it? Frederica Matthews Green she said she wrote an article. I didn't read it though. She said she wrote an article called "What We Need Is More Teen Pregnancy." And so
Oh my gosh, I know that article.
Yeah. And so she was basically saying, like, we need to revive the tradition of marrying young, because what are we doing to these young people? It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, but one of the problems is then you have to reorder all the key important principles in society, because marriage has to be not an act of entering into an institution after acquiring love. It has to be that institution in which you acquire love. We don't understand it that way. The outcome of marriage is love, including sexual, excitement and everything. The outcome are those things, not the prerequisite for it. But how do we get there? See, this is another thing we talked about last time. It feels like we get there because this burns itself down, which is sad.
It's sad to think that it's going to have to burn itself down, but I guess it's going to be inevitable. Like, it's all because there are direct consequences, direct fruits, and some of them are going to just be the lack of people, like just a continual birth, like drop in birth rate, just a lack of human beings, because the solutions you're giving, they don't work in terms of continuing the existence of humans. They just don't work.
Jeez, but that's why this conversation, I love this stuff, Jonathan. You got to go here with me for 1 second. That's why the conversation about global politics, WEF, all this stuff, those folks have a certain idea about what Africa should look like. And right now, the Africans are in a battle. And we work there. And I see it in East Africa and West Africa. There's a battle about who they are. The Georgians are the same way. And what are we going to adopt in this world? Are we going to go old world or new world? And I'm telling you, if they go new world, it almost denudes them of this potential power, because, they're the youth of the world right now. I forget the numbers. It's 60% of the people are under 30 years old or something. They're the youth. They're the thing you're describing. But if they buy the Western mentality, at least that Western worldview, they'll be denuded of all the potential, and they'll start using condoms, and they'll do all the things that won't allow them to grow that natural authority, which is human beings. That's how all these empires have risen, because they have energy at the back half of the generational, graph or whatever. There's a lot of young people. So I think about this a lot, and there's really no way to fix it, right? There's only a way to, I think you have to be an ascetic in your own life and just glow it. You have to be it. I think that's what you were saying with Paul. We have to become the thing that we're supposed to. That's a cheesy secular phrase. What do they say? Be the change. All that bullshit. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's
not
based
unreal.
I think it's based on something real, like Christ says, right? We become the tree so that the birds will land in your branches. Like, that's. You have to, that's the best way to do it, for sure. It's difficult,
Can we do it on the internet? I think that's the conversation, right?
I mean, I don't think so. I think that we can do something on the internet. We can call, we can encourage people, we can create that, put that, it's like you have to understand it almost like it's like a crumb, like you're dropping crumbs on the path, or dropping stones on the path. And so the internet is really far out in the forest, but it still can still be like a stone that helps you find your way back.
Why don't we have this crazy idea to get a Kepi van? Kepi is the name of that dinner. Supra is the formal name. Kepi means table or party. We want to get a van. Come on, man. You got it. All right. I'm inviting myself to whatever next thing you do with these characters that you're starting to make.
That'd be amazing. I'd love to do that. I'd love to participate in that.
Show up. We want to outfit it with a table or two that literally roll off the top, flip, open up. We set it up.
What shape is it? Has to be a shape of a table. Is it round, the table? Is it square?
No, it can't be round. It has to be long, and it has to have two ends. One end is the tamada, the
Right.
toastmaster. The other end is the here we go, the eldest male.
Okay.
And there's reasons for that symbolically, which is one is he's passing the torch to the other end to the tamada, who's offering the wisdom of the older gentleman. And so there's that generational representation. But the idea is to create this van and put some ovens inside and roll that table off or two, set it up, and go places and offer this dinner because we could, and invite us. I tell you, we'll roll up there wherever you go. I was thinking about trying to get to Thunder Bay. I have to be in Georgia the same week you guys are in Thunder Bay. There's a way to do it though, Jonathan. Take that seriously, because
Oh, definitely. I mean, I will take it very seriously. I'm hoping. Yeah, I don't know when the next time I'll be in the US. I'm not sure exactly when, but it's definitely going to happen. It's definitely going to happen.
We'll come to Montreal.
Come to Montreal?
If they'll let me through. I'm not
Yeah.
exactly boosted up properly. I don't even have the first one, so I don't know if they'll let us in, but
They won't.
still,
No, they won't. So you have to decide where you are. That's the only thing I can say.
I get it. I'm
Yeah.
not a Puritan on this. I
Yeah.
understand.
It's like, are you in Africa now? Like, I feel like I just decided that I'm in Congo is what I've decided.
I see.
So that's all I can say.
By the way, it's enough. By the way, I get the code.
Yeah.
Get the code. Okay, you be in Congo, and
Yeah.
I love that. I love that thought.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I think our van needs to show up. We don't have it yet. We're working on it.
Cool.
If you can't come to the States, that's the other invitation. But if you can, you got the restaurant here waiting for you.
Definitely. But I would love to go back to South Carolina. I'd love to go to Greenville. I love Greenville. I love Charleston. I love all those places.
So let's do this. Here's something I want everyone to hear too, which is really cool. We've set up these weekends. They're called KP seminars. Essentially, the goal is to take our supporters, and we're growing. I don't want to misrepresent us. We're a small organization, but we've done a lot of cool things. And we invite people in for the weekend. They obviously come to the restaurant. We drive up to Appalachia. We drive up to North Carolina about 2 hours, where we have 3 field workers doing these small project development. We do a visit. We meet some of our partners there, and then we have a seminar back at the restaurant that we record, and we talk about these really symbolic world ideas. I can get into them, but I want to talk to you. So, and that would be something that if you came to, both as a guest speaker, but also as a participant, I don't know, bring your wife, whatever you want to do. It's very relaxing here. It's a beautiful part of the world. You've been here. And Father Marcus at St. John's. And also I go up to the Roquefort Parish. Those guys are cool. We could do a lot of really neat things. And first things, would be proud to have you come down and do that. And Paul too, and anybody. And we're going to start those in the winter. So they're coming. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's plan on it, because I would definitely. Yeah, I think it's about time that I'm back in South Carolina. It's my second home. Sometimes I feel, because I've been there so much, and I love. Yeah, I just love the church there is wonderful. Like the Orthodox Church in the South is just great. It's so alive.
It has everything to do with it. There's a communitarian leftover here. Folks are willing and able to understand themselves as a part of, as not only their own. Now, I think it's changing though, man. It's where it used to be churches, now it's Walmart.
Right.
You gotta watch out.
Yeah, but it's definitely, I think it is a positive aspect of the American Protestantism, which is in the Orthodox Church of the South. Like this idea that the church is a congregation, it's a community. Like it's not just a place you go to get the sacraments, or that you go to do your Christian thing. That you have to have more. And I think that that's actually a really powerful. If that's what we can get from Protestantism, that's wonderful, because that's something that a lot of Protestant churches have really well.
Oh, and the energy of converts in the South is intense.
Yeah.
They know what they want.
Yeah.
Sometimes converts are wandering. These cats aren't wandering. They want to serve and they have energy.
Yeah.
That's why, I'm going to interview Sari Riccardi Schwartz. She's the one who wrote the book.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
I
She's agreed?
know. I know. Well, let me temper that. I think it's going to happen. She and I are talking. Uh, it's not going to be an attack moment if she comes on. I don't want it to be like that. I just want to understand, because I go to one of those mountain churches and
Yep.
it didn't have resonance. Now I'm Orthodox.
Yeah.
He is too, though. So there was something in that conversation that was a disconnect, and I just want to investigate the disconnect. I really don't. I'm not into propositional proofs. I'm not going to run down and debate with you. I'm not interested in that. But
Yeah. Well,
what
good
do you
luck with
think?
that. I
Yeah,
mean,
good
I
luck.
think it's like I used to be in contact with her before the book. And when she wrote the book, I didn't know what it was about. And I wrote it, say congratulations on the book and everything. And then I started seeing what was going on. I was like, wait a minute, what is this? And then I started seeing how it became fuel for the NPR piece. And I was like, this is really twisted. And so I don't know. I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's wonderful that you're kind of reaching out. I hope that, and I think you're a great person, because I do believe you'll have a real conversation
I
with
want to.
her. And I think that that's the best. But I think that there's an interesting thing in the Orthodox Church, which is people don't totally realize it, but there's like something like a battle of converts, like you could call it something like that. And so what you have is and it's sadly divided politically to a certain extent. And so let's say you have converts who come to Orthodoxy from more of a conservative side,
Mm-hmm.
and are looking for that backbone, looking for a tradition, for connection, for all of that, for solidity. And they come in and they want that stuff, right? They're the women who come in churches where women don't wear head coverings anymore, and they start wearing head coverings. Like they want the thing, right? And then you have the other side, which is that people that come to Orthodoxy for its suggestion of universalism, for its mysticism, for its great, hesychasm, and they come from the other side of the political aisle, and then they come in and they immediately want women priests, and they immediately want to us to accept all the gender identities and all this stuff. And so it's like, and then you have the two converts fighting, because one is so it's just fascinating to watch it happen. Like, it's just interesting. So
is there a fix for that? Again,
I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to work itself out.
I do
like
too.
It's going to, Orthodoxy has a tendency to work itself out, because it's not top down completely, and because it has a kind of organic messiness to it. It's going to shift, but hopefully it works itself out. I mean, it's not 100% sure that it will, because the communists did take over the church in Russia. Like, it happened. The church was decimated by the left in the communist country. So it's like, I don't know, but who knows? Like, and the same thing happened in the more fascistic countries, where the state took over the church and used it as a political tool. So these things, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work itself out, but we hope that we definitely can pray and hope that it will. And discussions like this are great, because at least they are going to at least propose that there could be a possible bridge.
Well, I believe in that. I believe it's the table. It's the agape feast. It's communion. I can stand in communion line with someone who literally thinks there should be women priests, and I don't see why they can't stand next to me who thinks that's probably not a good idea. I don't know why that wouldn't happen, except in that they want, I don't know, boy, when it becomes political, when it becomes a crusade, it gets odd to me. But I understand why they want the crusade. I just think we can give it air. I just think it's like confession. If you're in confession enough, really, here's what I want to say. If there's enough liturgical reality, in your week. In other words, if there's Vespers, if there's daily prayer, if there's something like, celebrating the feast, like even today was a feast, if there's enough invitation to that in your life and it has to be taken seriously, I think it cuts all the edges off of those, what I would call something like political conversation. I really do. The churches, the priests who put in all that time to go to church and serve Vespers and serve Matins, I actually think they're reducing the possibility for all this intellect to destroy the liturgy. I don't know what you think about that, but
I think so. I hope so. It's sometimes hard to it's hard to believe it in practice. Like it's easy to say yes, but it's like hopefully that's the case. But
I think you're back, Jonathan.
Yeah, we're back. Sorry.
You were just finishing with this idea we're living in strange times. Yeah.
I said, yeah, so we're living in strange times, and those strange times will definitely affect the church. They seem to affect the church maybe not as fast as other places. Like it's a slower seeping into the Orthodox churches because of how the church works, but it's going to affect us. Can't avoid it.
Yeah. I guess we can be at peace. So, okay. So let's get you to South Carolina.
Do it. Sure.
We'll do a weekend. We'll figure it out. And then, I don't know how I get to Canada, but one day you guys will do something different. Maybe not.
Not. I mean, we're not. It doesn't look good for Canada in terms of that stuff because our elections happen. We don't have elections until another 4 years. So,
do you remember when I think we did our very first conversation? You were living in Canada. The pandemic was just starting, and you didn't have a house, or basically you had a flooded house. Things are different now, at least.
Things are definitely different. Yeah, it was interesting.
And you weren't on Daily Wire yet.
So that's right. I wasn't on Daily Wire yet. So, but it's interesting to see like how crazy it's been these past few years. It's pretty nuts. Yeah,
well, we're
not over.
This group of whatever this thing is, these people on the internet, I count myself as one now, who are trying to, I'm just trying to support our work, and it works. Like people care. It's beautiful. I wouldn't even get into all the cool stories, but we're rooting for you, man. I just think of you as a missionary. Just that I know you. I don't know if that's good or bad for you in your world now, but it's just a fact. It's just you can't choose out. And I know we started in Africa, you and I. We both understand ourselves in part because of our experiences in Africa. And I know what's happened on a lot of levels to you. And I think it's happening to me. So we're rooting for you, man.
Yeah.
I'll just wrap it up. Let me wrap it up by giving you a toast.
Go for it. All right. Well, thank you, John.
If I can. This is very classic Georgian toast, okay? To the things we bring from the bottom, which would be represented sort of in our bowels, to all the things, to the eros, to the things that move, grass toward the sun and all the heavenly bodies around one another. So all the things in our lives that are in our lower half, which are good, may they be united properly to all the things that are eternal and in our mind, and sort of love, hope, all the untouchables, all the things we can't smell, we can't taste. May they all be united properly in the heart, so that we can live properly in reality together. So to you, brother, and your work.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Well, that was, I don't know. Can you have a friend that's just like an internet friend? If you can, I do. Am I starting to understand Andrew in Russia? Am I starting to understand internet dating? I think Jonathan would not like that I said that, but maybe I am. The unreal feels real, or the semi-real, the simulacrum feels not like a simulation. I don't know. But that podcast is over, and this is me saying, that was pretty cool. We'll be talking to Jonathan, see what he's up to in the future as he goes about his merry business. And we, as a part of this subculture that's trying to figure out consciousness and meaning, we chug along. please consider First Things Foundation as a stop on your internet travels. If you want to travel, think about joining us for a KP journey. We go, of course, to where we work: Guatemala, Sierra Leone, Georgian Republic. Soon you'll be able to visit us for a weekend in Appalachia, where we introduce you to the restaurant. And you get to sit around while we do this really cool seminar on meaning and service. That's some of the offerings we have, but there's many more. Pretty soon you can go online and buy stuff like cool swag. Pretty soon you can, well, I think you can do it right now. You can go and sign up for one of our KP journeys. And of course, you can always join us on Friday nights for a community KP in Greenville, South Carolina. I hope that you'll consider all of these things, and I hope, above all, you'll consider becoming a supporter. See what we do at www.first-things.org. Consider becoming a field worker, 2 years of your life, that's all. And consider becoming a supporter. Au revoir, nakvamdis kambufo. Hasta luego. ¿Qué es une autre? Une autre, qu'est-ce que c'est une autre façon? Dire au revoir. Je ne sais pas. Oh, I know. Nawe, Haitian Creole. Peace out.